All right, Maddie, welcome back to After Hours. We are back on this fine Monday, and we have a lot of crypto topics today, specifically about Bitcoin and how that relates to Trump and Harris, as Trump has laid out what he wants to accomplish in presidency with his, he called it championing crypto with AI innovation and crypto and Bitcoin. And Harris comes out with her platform and no mention of Bitcoin or crypto. There is mentions of AI, but none that we care about when it relates to crypto. So we'll get into that today, maybe some hot controversial topics from Maddie here. And we're also going to get into crypto entering a bear market. Does this have any validity? We have a lot of macro. Well, last week we had our jobs report, and that kind of foretold us of a 25 basis point coming September 18th. So we have an upcoming Fed rate cut this September, but we will see a string of these this year, which will help asset prices. So what do we have here? Does this mean we're going to enter a bear market with everything that's going on in the economy? We see, Bitcoin been ranging since, what was it, March this year? So we've been in this range for all this year. Is this time over? Are we going to enter a bear market? We're going to get into that. And Kamala wants to tax unrealized capital gains. So every single year you would have to pay out of your liquid pocket taxes on your stocks or maybe even cryptos. Hopefully you don't, tell your tax guy, don't tell your CPA you have crypto, but you'd be taxed on those gains, and you haven't even realized those. You haven't gotten to sell them yet. So we'll get into that, and maybe if we have some time, we'll get into Prove AI, the tool that is going to be launched by Casper potentially this month. So we'll get into, if we have any time, we'll get into that. But before we get into the topics for today, team, become a Crypto Charge member. Click the link in the pinned comment down below. It will take you to our website where you can sign up using code YouTube, and it's a crypto education platform. Not many like it out there. We have a community where you can, talk with other smart individuals, and we have weekly shows on there. That's where we do our weekly shows. And we have a lot of tools, coin library. We have our beginners course where it's a 45-minute course getting you integrated into crypto for you beginners. So make sure you sign up there in the pinned link down below. Maddie, let's get into some of the topics for today. And we have this asset manager, Bernstein, coming out with a little bit of their thoughts, and I think, I was trying to look up if they had any money in the game here, any donations to Donald Trump here, because they are saying they need this re-election because it may push Bitcoin to $90,000. Bernstein predicts that Bitcoin could reach $90,000 if Donald Trump wins in 2024, this election, driven by his pro-crypto stance and plans to make it the U.S. a global leader in crypto, okay? Trump's supports for Bitcoin have shifted since 2018. And this is in contrast with Kamala Harris, and this could result in a Bitcoin price drop with projections of a potential floor of $50,000 or even testing $30,000 due to a lack of support in the asset class. Maddie, the question of today, and I'm really interested to hear your thoughts on this, Trump or Harris as it relates to us crypto investors.
If I'm going to be honest, neither of them, I don't think either of them actually care about, crypto investors. Either of them care about our success or our portfolios. Donald Trump previously was very, very anti-crypto. We've seen Harris also kind of follow in the footsteps of Biden in relations to not his, staunch anti-crypto, stance, but, not necessarily being very helpful to the industry, not being very helpful when it comes to passing legislation that's bipartisan and helpful to providing clarity for us. So I think that we've seen examples from both of these candidates where they really have had opportunities, both being in very big positions of power and then both choosing not to do anything for crypto. So I'm going to say that right off the bat, we have evidence of both these individuals not being, good participants. Now, let's talk about price, right? First of all, I think a lot of these predictions that we see out here, especially from a lot of these guys who, we should trust because they're big institutions or, they wrote a book like Robert Kiyosaki, and we should say, hey, well, you've identified 2 or 3 macro factors here, and that's going to push Bitcoin to, $300,000. Or in this case, if Donald Trump wins, it goes to 90K, or if Harris wins, it drops to 50K, which is what, like 5 or 6 G's lower than current market. Like that's a normal market fluctuation for Bitcoin on a bad day. Now, of course, the 30K mark is a bit of a big stretch there, right? That would technically rebalance the market from a big macro standpoint, like retesting 30K, which was the top of accumulation for quite some time, would be good for the markets. But I think that both of these catalysts are very, very microscopic. We've got to look at a lot of other factors that are in the world right now. First of all, US is a big part of the crypto market, but it's not the only part of the crypto market, right? There's a lot of other countries that have different policies that can affect crypto, and your ability to custody and what those taxes look like, and a variety of different things. So I think that's a very microscopic view. I don't think that either of these candidates winning will immediately either send Bitcoin to 90K or down to 30K. I think that one of the things that we should probably be a little bit more paying attention to, I suppose, would be the rate cuts that we have potentially next week, like we talked about there, right? When we look at the actual factors that influence the markets, and we've talked about previously, people talk about life being good under this president or that president, and we can say some of those policies maybe impact the economy, and some of them do. You can point to direct evidences of that. However, the majority of performance in risk on assets like stocks and cryptocurrencies, and crypto is newer, right? We've only had this market for about a decade now, and the altcoin market less than a decade. So, when you think about, how long we've actually had this liquid market, it's not very long. But when you look at kind of the performance, it's a lot more closely tied to economic policy. I mean, what is the Federal Reserve doing with economic policy? Are we in a tightening and restrictive environment like we are now, which is why we've had kind of some difficulty, seeing some higher prices? Or are we in a quantitative easing environment where the Fed is, cutting rates, offering credit to banks at a much lower rate? People can borrow money cheaper. They can buy homes cheaper. They can buy cars cheaper. They can borrow money and pay, start their businesses. These are all things that introduce liquidity into the economy. That, in my opinion, has a much greater impact on what we're going to see with crypto prices over the next 12 to 18 months than any presidential outcome here. Now, of course, you see some really positive regulation come out of any presidential candidate, and you get some bipartisan support, and we get some stuff passed. Yeah, of course, that's going to help things along. But I think that we're overstating the potential investor sentiment based on a single presidential outcome, as if that's going to be the dictating factor of how these markets are going to move. So either way, I hope that whoever ends up in office here, they do a good job of at least getting this industry moving forward, and we start to remove some of the waste and start to provide some clarity. But I'm not holding my breath that happens year 1 in office or even year 2 in office. I think that it's still a long road ahead of us when it comes to regulation.
Maddie, you spoke a lot of fact there. And just to kind of piggyback off what you said, 2 months ago, Trump was telling Jerome Powell to not cut rates yet. And so why do you think he's saying that, right? And so everyone wants to hop on and say, well, Trump's going to help our economy. But what is actually going to happen here? Don't you think the Fed actually cutting rates, a string of rate cuts this year, is going to help the markets? I think so. And so I think that that should be your telltale side, right, Matt? Trump getting in doesn't mean, better for us, or better. And I think everyone thinks oh, Trump. And they do think this. They think, oh, Trump in office means everything gets better, and that's not what happens,
Right.
And so we have to actually see Pauly be enacted for change, Matt. It just doesn't happen. We don't get to flip the switch day one and everything happens. I think they've made a lot of promises each, and we'll have to be here to critique them on the promises that they don't enact, they don't follow through with. So let's get into something a little bit more interesting here with a bear market. Everyone's wondering, is a bear market coming? Is Bitcoin going down to 30,000? Are we going to see a break of this range that we have right now and see lower prices on Bitcoin, which everyone was not expecting? I was actually talking with Dan Habib, Crypto Charge Boy, on the platform, and he was just like, wow, he's just in awe of the monthly close on Bitcoin. And I was just like, yeah, I think we kept our ears too grounded with people, of the same mindset on Bitcoin. I think everyone, especially this, Rect Capital is a big one going into September, where we see, new higher highs in Bitcoin, foreseeing out of this range, and obviously Rect Capital is not saying, it's mandatory to see it this September. But it was just funny. If you go through his charts, you could obviously see he's like, hey, giving a little nudge there, a little wink, wink. It's like, hey, it's coming. And so everyone that, I've heard of, everything that I've, on chain, when Dan brings and when Maddie brings up his TA, everyone on Twitter, everyone was hoping, pre-election, somewhere in this range for Bitcoin to see new all-time highs. But we are at the bottom of the range right now, and we had a very sucky monthly close. And so that's just where we're at. So the question here today is Bitcoin or is crypto entering a bear market? Bitcoin is facing macro econ volatility, with institutional products seeing 600 million in outflows, raising concerns of a bear market as it mirrors 2019 price patterns. Crypto funds and spot Bitcoin ETFs experienced steady net outflows last week, with Bitcoin price down 7% in September, aligning with historical trends for the month. Analysts predict potential for a 20% price rebound as Bitcoin remains within a consolidation channel that has held since March through macroeconomic data and the upcoming Fed rate decision may influence further movement. So Maddie, is there like what is to be expected here, right? So we're in this range right now. Could we see a break of range in lower prices to a bear market?
I personally am not of the belief that we're gearing up to head back into a bear market. I think that when you've had price extended for as long as it is now, we've talked about this many times, that consolidation is more frustrating to people than just up or down price action. Even if price is moving down aggressively, you have people interested in opening shorts and, getting involved with the market that way. People want to get cheeky with it. But this sideways chop is really just not very favorable for any trader. You have some range traders in there, but this is generally not very favorable price action just because you don't have a trend to follow. You're really just chopping around for the most part. Some of the macro factors that we've talked about, I think that one of the biggest fears is the fear of a recession, and we've waited too long to cut rates. And I agree that we've waited too long to cut rates. We've ignored the data for a long time. We have, a lot of now mixed data, like we said, with the recent jobs report showing that there was, first of all, technically a small downtick in unemployment. We also saw, a rise in discouraged workers. So meaning the people that are actually not looking for jobs anymore, they're not included in that number anymore. But we also saw job openings come down. So technically less jobs are available. So that data could change, even more down the road. So there's definitely, a lot of just very interesting data points right now that aren't, painting a very solid picture and I think providing a lot of concern for people. And there's nothing wrong with, looking at this data and having a little bit of concern. However, as we continue to get into this rate cut cycle, and it is going to be a rate cut cycle, I don't think we do 25 bips and then we just hold rates steady for 6 to 8 months. That's really not where we're at right now. If the Fed also believes that we are entering a recession and that we need to do more, even if it means that we're not going to get that same immediate impact that we're going to get, I think that we're going to continue to see more liquidity flow into the markets as the Fed becomes less restrictive with their monetary policy. So short term, I'm not promising you guys, hey, the Fed cuts 25 bips and now Bitcoin's at 90K, right? Like that's not the situation I'm talking about here. I'm talking about the slow easing of liquidity back into the markets over the next 12 to 18 months, as long as this rate cut cycle continues. Now, let's say that there's a recessionary announcement, even if we're in a rate cut environment, right? Maybe they have to change their strategy and they have to just hold rates. First of all, that's still going to be good because rates have come down a bit. You're going to have liquidity flowing through both real estate, flowing through the auto market. You're going to have people potentially be able to pull out HELOCs and pull out loans against their properties. There is other opportunities when it comes to that liquidity re-entering the market. So I don't see a future where we go back into a bear market in a rate cut cycle without poking some new highs here for the crypto market. So I'm very optimistic about it. We look at a lot of the structures on the total market cap. You look at the structure on Bitcoin. It's just big flagging structures. And we've talked a lot about the march up. It was about a 180-day march up for the altcoin market, for the crypto market. And then we've just been consolidating. And again, everyone has this picture in their head of like, well, it just didn't keep going immediately up. But that's not really that healthy to me. You got a half year of up and you got a half year sideways. That's really not that crazy. I think that it's really more about investor expectations of timelines. And then they start to look at all these macro factors and they go, that's it. We're going to the bear market. I'll sell it. I'll come back and I'll buy at lower prices. And, I'll time this market perfectly. I'm not willing to play that game. And I think that things are going to get better over the next 12 to 18 months for sure.
Kamala Harris' 28% capital gains tax plan is a surprise. Here's why. Vice President Kamala Harris proposes a 28% tax on long-term capital gains for Americans earning $1 million or more, lower than President Biden's 39.6% proposal, but still a significant hike from the current 20% rate. Harris,
so quick fact check on that one. That's actually going to be $100 million or more.
What are you looking at here, Matt?
So it's going to be Americans earning $100 million or more.
Okay, this was from Forbes, so they got it wrong. Harris aligns with Biden on various tax plans, including. Wait, Maddie, is this in relation to? Are you talking about unrealized capital gains tax? Or what do
Yes,
you?
yes, unrealized capital gains.
Yeah, this isn't unrealized capital gains. This is
Gotcha,
just a tax plan.
okay.
Yeah, this is just a tax plan. Let me start over.
Sorry,
Vice
brother.
President Kamala Harris proposes a 28% tax on long-term capital gains for Americans earning 1 million or more, lower than President Biden's 39.6% proposal, but still a significant hike from the current 20% rate. So we're going to get into the unrealized capital gains here in a second. Harris aligns with Biden on various tax plans, including raising the corporate tax rate to 28%, taxing unrealized capital gains, and introducing the billionaire minimum income tax, while also offering tax breaks for small businesses and renters. Despite adopting some moderate positions, Harris remains committed to progressive tax policies, particularly targeting wealthier Americans through increased taxes on stock, buybacks, and other wealth-driven income. So Maddie, what you were saying about individuals making 100 million or more, that is where the unrealized capital gains really gets to hinder you. But for someone like, let's just take me, for example, I don't have $100 million. This isn't going to be affecting me, right? But when talking about unrealized capital gains here, how much is this going to actually hurt more than help?
Right. So there's a lot to unpack here, and that's probably one of the bigger pieces I think people are talking about is going to be that unrealized capital gains. And like you said, a lot of people think that it doesn't affect them. But let's go back to those first couple of points for a quick second here, just to touch on them. One of the things that I want you guys to realize here too is that raising the corporate rate tax to 28% affects all kinds of people, including myself, who runs a small business. This doesn't just affect super wealthy individuals. Me, who runs just a regular business, I have to pay now an increased rate just for the privilege of being in business. And that doesn't include my personal taxes and anything else. So you guys do have to understand that some of these taxation increases are affecting regular people. Now, let's roll back to this $100 million or more a year earners and what people really think is happening here. And what you're doing is you're trying to rally these people who want to, go with the mantra of eat the rich. And, if we do this, we're going to restore power to the people, and they need to pay their fair share. And I'm not even sure what the hell that means. Fair share is fair share. If you're following the tax code, which was written by the government, right, by the IRS, then you're doing what you're doing. You're supposed to be doing. You're paying your fair share. What happens is, wealthy individuals, and even people who are not super wealthy do this as well, is that if you have enormous amounts of money and you have a company, you are going to borrow against your stocks, and you're going to take out loans at an interest rate, and you don't pay taxes on those, right? And then you go and you buy more stocks with them, and you take out more loans to get that. And it's just this big cycle, right? And you eventually kind of protect yourself, but of course, you still have some volatility. There's still some risk as markets don't move up in a straight line. You won't have access to 100% liquidity. You still have to pay attention to loan to value. It's not a risk-free game. Let's be clear about that. However, when you have more money, it's a little bit of an easier game to play. However, let's talk about this. People are saying, well, you don't have $100 million, so this doesn't affect you. Don't worry about it. Let them just pay 20% on, let's again say, unrealized capital gains, things you haven't even paid, made money on. So let's say, first of all, an asset's up, 2x, you pay 20% on that 100% gain. And let's say by the end of the year, price goes back down again. It doesn't matter, right? You still had to pay that tax, even though the stock performed at a very volatile rate since actually becoming taxed on it versus when you actually sell it. So again, if let's say you were to sell it at a loss and then you already paid this unrealized capital gains tax, do you get that back? Does it become a credit? Does the government just get to keep that, right? A lot of things to consider there. Here's the bigger issue though, guys. It does affect you. If we were to actually employ this, first of all, the reward is very, very small for the government if this actually ends up being the case. Think about people who are making $100 million or more a year. Think about how much money and how much liquidity they have in the markets. I know that you and I think that we're important in the markets and that we provide all this liquidity. We don't. We're little shrimp. We ride the waves of these banks, institutions, and wealthy people. So if these people are obligated now to pay a 20% tax on unrealized gains, what do you think they're going to do? They're probably going to sell some of those underlying assets to pay that 20% tax rate. What do you guys think happens when the wealthiest people in the world are unloading on the markets? That crashes the markets. Who does that affect? You. You don't have a different price than anyone else, right? Like you and me get the same price for Microsoft. We get the same price for Bitcoin. We don't get special pricing, right? So if you have the top 1% of the world forced to dump part of their portfolio to pay unrealized capital gains, that affects the regular person. That affects someone making $50,000 a year. That affects someone making $30,000 a year. If you have a penny in the market, that affects you. Okay, so I want you guys to think about those things. Last fact that I'm going to bring here with this particular topic is, and a lot of people think again, oh, well, if we tax these people, then people are going to be able to help, single moms and kids are going to get meals. Not the case. If you were to employ this, you would fund the federal government every year for 3 days. 3 whole days. So you're going to crash the markets. You're going to wipe people's liquidity out. You're going to make them pay money for things they haven't even sold yet. And you're going to fund the federal government for 3 days. It's equivalent of when people, look at Jeff Bezos and they think he's an evil man, and maybe he is. I don't know, but I don't think he's an evil man for having a lot of money. You liquidate Jeff Bezos today down to the bone. You take away Amazon, you sell all of his houses, you sell everything. You will fund the government, the federal government, for 26 days. That's not worth it. And guess what? Millions of jobs gone. You don't have this huge economy anymore because of Amazon. Everyone who participates in e-commerce because of Amazon, gone. I think a lot of people don't look at the bigger implications of taxing the rich and then paying their fair share, because it does have this trickle-down effect into us regular people in the economy who are making, well under $1 million a year.
Wow, Maddie, a lot of facts there. I don't even know how to, even. I mean, we're at the end of the show here. I think we're out of time, but I think that was like phenomenal display you went on there. So where does this lead you? All right. So this has happened a couple times over, we've been doing this after our show this whole year now. And this has come up a couple of times about these politicians. I think our community's in agreement. It's like, yeah, like we got the message across. Like, yeah, this presidency isn't going to affect our crypto holdings, right? Bitcoin's going to hit 150,000 next year with Trump or Biden, or not Trump or Biden, Trump or Harris, still living 4 months ago when Biden was running. Whether Trump or Harris enters office, gets elected, and, inauguration next January. So nothing will change. I think our community is kind of behind that standpoint. If you're not of that standpoint, I haven't seen those comments, but that's the majority of what our comments are saying here, right? So maybe let's just put like an end to this right now, as it relates to Trump and Harris right now, so we don't have to continue on about this, because we only have a couple more months here. I mean, what is it? It's September 9th today? Okay, so we have, just a very short time here before the presidential election here. So, and Trump has flip-flopped on a lot of things, so I expect that coming in the next few months. So there's going to be probably some more change and some development here. But just from where we're at right now, what their platforms say about crypto, where does this lead you for Trump and Harris as it relates to crypto? Like, does this cause you to, like, especially when you see these, unrealized capital gains tax, does this make you want to vote for Trump? Like, what is your thought process through all of this?
I don't think I'll be casting a vote this time around at all. Last cycle I had a really, really excellent third-party choice. We had a strong candidate with Joe Jorgensen out there who really just had no previous issues, no previous allegations, and had a lot of great policies that were going to impact Americans in a very great way. We actually had one of the largest libertarian votes we've ever seen in U.S. history. So I do hope that continues to be the case, that we get more and more ideology and different parties coming forward, so we don't feel so trapped between the lesser of two evils and a rock and a hard place. At the end of the day, we also have to remember that all of these promises and policies are not going to come to fruition if you don't have Congress behind you, right? You can say that you want to tax people more. You can say that you're going to do all these things for crypto, but what is your plan to work with all of these lawmakers to actually make it happen? Because you can issue executive orders all day, but that generally doesn't fly very well, right? Because you're technically circumventing the constitutional process, and generally when we see executive orders, they're very not very well received. So really, I think that when you look at what's going to happen, it's going to be more about who is Congress willing to work with, and what else do we have to give up as Americans, because that's what happens with these bills, right? What are we going to have to give up to achieve these things? What are they going to sneak in these bills in order to achieve these things? What other expenses are we going to send to other parts of the world in order to achieve crypto regulation here? So it always comes at a cost. I want you guys to understand that, and that's going to be coming with Trump as well, right? If Kamala wins, all right, a lot of this stuff is very negative stuff. I don't want to see any of this stuff. I don't want to see any more money taken out of my pockets, but I also want to see Trump actually be true to his word and not flip-flop like he's done previously, and focus on his own vested interests. So at the end of the day, I'm not too worried about any particular president. I'm actually more concerned about what Congress is going to do together to make things positive for us as a crypto community.
Unfortunately, Maddie, we do not have a king, and we don't have a symbolic, royal family, or we don't have, anything that would lead us, in hope in one direction here. We live in a completely different makeup and structure here, where we have president, we have Congress, and we just have a completely different government, where we just don't have one guy that takes the reins and takes us in one direction here. So, and I also don't want to play on the fact of just like not living up to the word, as most presidents don't. They never live up to their word. But I don't want to sit here and be like, oh, Kamala Harris, is never going to live up to this unrealized capital gains tax. I don't think she will, but I don't want to like make that as a basis for, why I'm not, on par with someone. Like, I do want to follow their word and what they say. as you should follow other people, and then you should be there to criticize them when they don't, so
Right.
we will see, team. Again, so Maddie laid it out there, no vote. I got no vote yet either. I don't know who I'm going for. I mean, Trump's flipped a lot these last couple months here. Hey, we're not a political show here, but I should gotta stay with the facts here. You guys, you 2015 Trumpies, not looking good for all of you. Not looking good for all you. Bro has flip-flopped a lot. So I'm interested to see how this plays out, Matt. But I think our crypto markets are still headed in the same direction, and we have a lot of upcoming macroeconomic events coming up. So stay tuned for that, team. If you got something good here, leave a like down below, and we will see you guys on the Ask Maddie show this Wednesday, 2:30 p.m. Pacific. So leave your questions down below. And also, I just wanted to, drop it in the comments down below. Trump or Harris? I'm just interested to see and why. And why.
Right.
I don't want to just see Trump or Harris, but I want to see and why. Give me your argument for why I should vote for Donald Trump or why I should vote for Kamala Harris. I don't think you guys are going to do a good job, but I'm interested to see nonetheless. Maddie, we will see them Wednesday. Bye.